My Subaru just hit 350,000 miles. Same engine, same transmission, no major repairs. Still runs like the day I bought it. People ask me all the time, how did you do it? What's your secret? They expect some complicated answer, some expensive maintenance routine, some special oil or additive. But the truth? There's one thing I did differently than most Subaru owners. One simple habit that most people ignore or think doesn't matter. It's not exotic. It's not expensive. You won't find it emphasized in the owner's manual or recommended by dealers. But this one thing is the reason my Subaru made it to 350,000 miles, while other identical models died at 120,000. I've watched countless Subaru owners destroy perfectly good engines because they didn't understand this. They followed the maintenance schedule. They changed their oil on time. They did everything right according to the manual. But they missed this one critical thing, and it cost them thousands in premature engine failure. Today, I'm revealing exactly what I did differently, why it matters so much for Subaru engines specifically, and how you can do the same thing starting today to make your Subaru last just as long. Whether your Subaru has 30,000 miles or 200,000 miles, this one habit will add years to its life. Let's get into it. The one thing: I never let my engine run cold. Here it is, the one thing I did differently that got my Subaru to 350,000 miles. I never ever let my engine operate under load when it's cold. And I always made sure it reached full operating temperature on every single drive. That's it. That's the secret. I know what you're thinking. That's not a secret. Everyone knows you should warm up your car. But here's the thing. Most people don't actually do it. Or they do it wrong. Or they don't understand how critical it is specifically for Subaru Boxer engines. Let me explain exactly what I mean and why it matters so much. What never running cold actually means. Most Subaru owners think they're warming up their engine properly. They're not. Here's what most people do wrong. They start the car and immediately drive off. Or they let it idle for 30 seconds and think that's enough. Or they let it idle for 2 to 3 minutes, then immediately get on the highway and drive 70 miles per hour. Or they make short 5 to 10 minute trips where the engine never reaches full operating temperature. All of these are killing your engine. Here's what I did differently. Every single time I started my car, I followed this exact routine. Start the engine and let it idle for 60 seconds, not 10 seconds, a full minute. This gives oil time to circulate to every component, especially in the horizontal cylinders of the Boxer engine. Drive gently for the first 5 to 10 minutes. I kept it under 2,500 revolutions per minute. No hard acceleration, no highway speeds, just gentle, easy driving. I didn't consider the engine warm until the temperature gauge reached the normal operating range, around 195 to 205 degrees Fahrenheit. This took 10 to 15 minutes depending on weather. Only after the engine was fully warm did I drive normally. And here's the critical part. I never made trips shorter than 15 minutes. If I needed to run a quick errand 5 minutes away, I either walked, combined it with other errands to make a longer trip, or accepted that this short trip was damaging the engine and compensated with more frequent oil changes. This one habit, always warming up properly and always driving long enough to reach full operating temperature, is what got me to 350,000 miles. Why this matters so much for Subaru Boxer engines. You might be thinking, warming up is good for any engine. What's special about Subarus? Here's why this habit is even more critical for Subaru Boxer engines: the horizontal cylinder problem. In a Subaru Boxer engine, the cylinders are horizontal. When the engine is off, oil drains away from the cylinder walls faster than in a vertical engine. When you start a cold engine, those horizontal cylinders have minimal lubrication for the first several seconds. If you immediately put load on the engine, you're forcing under-lubricated pistons to work hard against cylinder walls. Metal grinds on metal. Wear accelerates dramatically. That's why the 60-second idle before driving is so critical. It gives oil time to reach those horizontal cylinders. The cold oil flow problem. When oil is cold, it's thick. At 32 degrees Fahrenheit, engine oil can be 10 times thicker than at operating temperature. Thick oil doesn't flow quickly through the tight clearances of modern Subaru engines. It doesn't reach the cam lobes, valve train, and turbo, if equipped, as quickly. If you put the engine under load while the oil is still thick and hasn't fully circulated, critical components operate with inadequate lubrication. The fuel wash problem. Cold engines run rich. The computer dumps extra fuel to help with cold starts and drivability. But at low temperatures, that fuel doesn't atomize and burn completely. Some of it condenses on cold cylinder walls as liquid. Liquid fuel washes away the oil film on the cylinder walls. Without that protective film, piston rings scrape directly against metal, causing wear and eventually oil consumption. The only way to prevent this? Get the engine to full operating temperature where fuel burns completely and doesn't wash away oil. The direct injection carbon problem. Modern Subarus use direct injection. Fuel sprays directly into the combustion chamber, bypassing the intake valves. Without fuel washing over them, intake valves accumulate carbon deposits from oil vapor in the crankcase. When the engine is cold and doesn't reach full temperature, these deposits accumulate much faster because they never burn off. At 350,000 miles, I had my intake valves inspected. They were remarkably clean for the mileage. Why? Because I always got the engine fully hot, which burned off carbon deposits before they could build up. Before we go further, I want to share something with you. Getting my Subaru to 350,000 miles wasn't luck. It was following a specific maintenance blueprint. I've documented everything I did, every service interval, every habit that mattered, and turned it into a complete 500,000-mile car maintenance blueprint specifically for Subaru owners. If you want your Subaru to last just as long, grab that blueprint from the link in the description. It's everything you need to know in one place. The real-world impact over 350,000 miles. Let me show you the difference this one habit made over the life of my Subaru. Oil consumption, 0. At 350,000 miles, my Subaru uses 0 oil between changes. Not a quart every 3,000 miles. 0. Why? Because I never washed oil off the cylinder walls with cold running and unburned fuel. The piston rings maintained their seal. Most Subarus develop oil consumption by 100,000 to 150,000 miles. Mine never did. No carbon buildup. At my last inspection, the mechanic commented that my intake valves looked like they belonged to a car with 50,000 miles, not 350,000. Why? Because every single drive got the engine hot enough to burn off carbon deposits before they hardened. No head gasket issues. Subarus, especially the EJ25 engines, are notorious for head gasket failures. At 350,000 miles, my head gaskets are original, never replaced, no leaks. Why? Because I never thermal shocked the engine by putting heavy loads on it while cold. The gaskets never experienced the extreme temperature differentials that cause them to fail. Original turbo. My 350,000-mile Subaru is a WRX with a turbo. Turbos typically fail by 150,000 to 200,000 miles on most Subarus. Mine is original and still works perfectly. Why? Because I always let the engine warm up before putting it under boost, and I always let it cool down after hard driving. Compression. Like new. At 350,000 miles, I had a compression test done. All 4 cylinders were within 5 pounds per square inch of each other, and all were within the factory spec range for a new engine. Why? Because minimal cold running wear meant the rings and cylinder walls maintained their condition. This is the real-world proof that never running cold works. How I actually implemented this in daily life. You might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do this with a real-life schedule? Here's how I made it work. Morning commute. I started my car 5 minutes earlier than I needed to leave, let it idle for 60 seconds, then pulled out of the driveway and drove gently through the neighborhood. By the time I hit the highway 10 minutes later, the engine was fully warm and ready for highway speeds. This required planning ahead, leaving 5 minutes earlier, but it added years to my engine's life. Short errands. If I needed something from a store 5 minutes away, I had 3 options: walk or bike if feasible. Combine the errand with other stops to make a longer trip. Drive, but know that this short trip was hard on the engine, and compensate by changing oil more frequently. Most of the time, I chose option 2. I planned my errands to minimize short trips. Winter warm-up. In winter, I never let the car idle for 10 to 15 minutes to warm up. That's actually worse than driving it. Instead, 60-second idle, then drive very gently, under 2,000 revolutions per minute, until warm. The engine warms up faster while driving gently than while idling. I use the heated seats and heated steering wheel for immediate warmth instead of waiting for the engine to heat the cabin. Oil change strategy. Because I drove a WRX hard when warm, and because I occasionally had to make short trips, I changed my oil every 5,000 miles instead of 6,000. This gave me a buffer against any fuel dilution or moisture contamination from unavoidable short trips. What about unavoidable short trips? Life happens. Sometimes you have to make short trips. Here's what I did when short trips were unavoidable. Accept the reality. This trip is harder on the engine than a long trip. That's just fact. Compensate with maintenance. I track short trips. If I made more than a few in a week, I moved up my next oil change. Warm up as much as possible. Even on a 5-minute trip, I still did the 60-second idle and drove gently. Take a weekly highway drive. At least once a week, I took a 30-minute highway drive specifically to get everything fully hot and burn off any accumulated moisture or carbon. This weekly engine exercise compensated for the unavoidable short trips during the week. The other things I did, but they were secondary. People always ask, what else did you do to get to 350,000 miles? Honestly, standard maintenance, nothing special. Oil changes every 5,000 miles with quality synthetic oil. Air filter every 20,000 miles. Coolant flush every 50,000 miles. CVT fluid change every 60,000 miles. Spark plugs at 100,000 miles. Transmission fluid, differential fluid, and brake fluid on schedule. But here's the truth. Lots of Subaru owners do all of this and still don't make it to 350,000 miles. Why? Because they're making short trips and running the engine cold constantly. All the maintenance in the world can't overcome that fundamental mistake. The warm-up habit was the difference maker. Everything else was just supporting it. The math. What this habit actually costs. You might be thinking, this sounds time-consuming and expensive. Let's do the actual math. Time cost. Starting the car 5 minutes earlier each day. 30 hours per year. Planning errands to minimize short trips. 2 hours per year. Total time investment. 32 hours per year. Financial cost. 1 extra oil change per year. $60. Taking weekly highway drives. $90 per year in extra fuel. Total financial cost, $150 per year. What did I save? By getting 350,000 miles instead of the average 150,000 miles before major issues. No engine replacement, $5,000 to $8,000 saved. No transmission replacement, $4,000 to $7,000 saved. No head gasket replacement, $2,500 saved. No turbo replacement, $2,500 saved. Total savings, $14,000 to $20,000. The math is clear. Spending 32 hours and $150 per year to save $15,000 plus is the best investment you can make. The bottom line, my Subaru hit 350,000 miles because of one habit. I never let the engine operate under load when cold, and I always drove long enough to reach full operating temperature. This simple habit prevented oil consumption from fuel wash cylinder walls, carbon buildup on intake valves, head gasket failure from thermal stress, turbo failure from oil coking, premature wear from inadequate lubrication. It required planning, starting the car earlier, combining errands, avoiding short trips when possible. But it was worth it. Every hour invested, every extra oil change, every detour to make a trip longer. Because now, I have a 350,000-mile Subaru that still runs perfectly. No major repairs, no catastrophic failures, just reliable transportation year after year. You can do the same thing. Start today. Let your engine idle for 60 seconds after every cold start. Drive gently for 10 to 15 minutes until fully warm. Avoid short trips when possible. When short trips are unavoidable, compensate with more frequent oil changes. Take a weekly long drive to fully exercise the engine. That's it. That's the secret to 350,000 miles. Not complicated, not expensive, just consistent, intelligent operation that respects how Subaru Boxer engines actually work. Your Subaru can last just as long, but you have to treat it right from the beginning. Start this habit today. Your future self will thank you when you're still driving the same Subaru 20 years from now. And if you want the complete roadmap to making your Subaru last just as long as mine did, don't forget to grab the 500,000-mile car maintenance blueprint from the link in the description. It's got every single thing I did documented, every service, every interval, every habit that mattered. Get it now and give your Subaru the same chance at a long life that mine had. If you found this video helpful, be sure to watch this next video as we're sharing insider tips to help you cut repair costs and keep your car running like new.